Donald Trump in his FBI address today. Chicago has had 645 murders this year, many tragedies. Nationally, though, violent crime has roughly been falling overall. Federal prisons are packed, though, because they are filled with nonviolent offenders. Under 5% of federal prisoners' most serious convictions were violent offenses. The numbers, of course, tell only part of the story. It's even clearer when you look at real people. Take the musician and businessman Meek Mill. When he was 19, he served 8 months for an illegal weapons charge. Since then, though, he's been quite productive, releasing albums, starting a business, and he hasn't been convicted of any new violent offense. But because of strict parole rules, Meek Mill now faces a jail term longer than that original sentence, 2 to 4 years in prison. Why? Well, allegations that were dropped about a fight, and NYPD caught him driving a dirt bike and popping wheelies. Those wheelies may have been dumb, but a regular citizen would never get 2 to 4 years in prison for them. It's not about the wheelies. It's about a very harsh parole system, which has followed Mill his whole adult life, and it forces some of these harsh sentences. Now, Meek Mill's famous, so this is getting extra attention from celebrities in the press. And if that's what it takes for people to notice these rules, well, so be it. I'll also mention that at MSNBC, we have reported on many non-famous black men hurt by the criminal justice system, like Linwood Lambert, who died in police custody in Virginia, Jarrett Adams, who served 10 years for a conviction that was ultimately overturned, and Laquan McDonald and Tamir Rice, who were killed by police. For tonight's special discussion, my guest is A$AP Ferg, a musician and rapper who's been advocating for Meek Mill's release. In fact, his latest music video was a collaboration with Meek Mill, Trappin' a Dream, and Reverend Al Sharpton, who visited Meek Mill in prison this month, president of the National Action Network, and, of course, host of Politics Nation. Rev, this story tracks so many stories in the parole system. Why is it important?
It's important because it is representative of so many other cases. When you have a parole system that could put a man in jail 2 to 4 years, that is more than the original term or sentence that he was given when he was 18 years old. And the reason you're going to put him there is because he was, dealing with a wheelie or some minor offense, and by a judge who I've said should be recused or removed. I wrote the chief judge this week in Pennsylvania, a judge who has tried to say to him he ought to go back to his old management, a manager she knows in Philadelphia, a judge who has some questionable disclosures that she didn't make. Mm-hmm. When you combine all of that, it's a story we in National Action Network have heard over and over and over. Meek Mill is symbolic of a system that is out of control, particularly when it's young black men. We have to stand up for Meek Mill to really expose how we've got to change this system.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so important. I just discussed this with A$AP Ferg. He's a musician who performed with Mill. He's on tour in Australia, but he wanted to speak out about this, and he tells me Mill has done nothing to justify going to jail with murderers.
Jail is where, like, murderers and people who need to do hard time go and sit down for a long time. And he's not that. He was outside making art and music and designing clothes with Puma and, doing things for people in his neighborhood. This guy is not he's not barbaric. He's not a gargoyle. He's a human being and a very wholesome human being.
That's what in law we'd call a character witness, because they work together. You were just visiting Mill in prison. What gets me about this, because like you, I've covered and looked at these issues, is Mr. Mill looks like rehab success. There was an original conviction, but he comes out and he gets involved in business and music and fashion and records. This is what you'd want someone to do if they come out of a 19-year-old when they're 19 to have a conviction.
What is the purpose of parole and probation if it is not given someone to redeem and reform themselves and establish a track record in doing this? This young man, he said to me when I visited him in jail, he said, Reverend, at 18, I was a criminal. But he became an entrepreneur, he became an artist, and a successful one. And to be treated in this way is such a in my opinion, example of how many young people that may not get to the visibility or the viability of Meek Mill, but that get a job, they try to build a family, and that for the slightest infraction becomes a person that is caught up in an incarceration system that is built on what is called a prison industrial complex, where people are actually making money out of incarcerating them rather than really trying to nurture and build society by reforming them and giving them the ability to be productive.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.